Idaho, a small college town Moscow. Quiet streets, campuses, noisy parties, and a friendly atmosphere. Here, young people study, make plans for the future, fall in love, and live their first adult life. But a November night in 2022 will forever turn this city into a place the whole world will talk about. Where once there was student carelessness, fear reigned, and 4 young lives were cut short in an instant. Students lived in a rented house on King Road. Kylie Goncalves is 21 years old, cheerful, ambitious, and dreamed of a career in technology. Madison Mogan is 21 years old, her best friend. They have been inseparable since childhood. Zana Kernodal is 20 years old, a smiling girl who loved life and friends. Ethan Chapin is 20 years old, Zana's boyfriend, a student with big plans. They were ordinary students who had their whole lives ahead of them. Evening of November 12, 2022. The night before the tragedy, Kylie and Madison went to a bar called Corner Club that evening. They spent time with friends there and returned home by taxi at about 1:30 a.m. The city cameras recorded their journey. Zana and Ethan were at a party on campus that night. They returned home at about the same time, about 1:45 a.m. The 2 neighbors who also lived in the house went to bed earlier. They did not know that the night would turn into a nightmare. By 2 a.m., the house was plunged into silence. Everything looked ordinary. Around 4 a.m., a white Hyundai Elantra was spotted in the area of the house. The car drove down the street several times, as if it was looking for the right moment. Then the driver parked nearby and headed toward the house. It was Bryan Kohberger. He knew the layout, knew where the students would sleep. He brought a large tactical knife with him. First, he went up to the second floor where Madison and Kylie were. The girls slept in the same room. Investigators believe that they were the first victims. The struggle did not last long. Multiple stab wounds were found on the bodies. Then he went down to the first floor to Zana and Ethan's room. Signs of a struggle indicate that Zana woke up and tried to resist. Cuts were found on her arms, the so-called defensive wounds. Her boyfriend, Ethan, also resisted, but the forces were unequal. Everything happened quickly, but incredibly cruelly. At this time, Dylan Mortensen, one of the neighbors, woke up on the lower floor. She heard strange sounds, first like footsteps, then quiet crying. Then she heard a man's voice, "Don't worry, I'll help you." The girl looked out into the hallway and saw the figure of a man in black clothes, a mask, and a hood. In his hands, he was holding an object that looked like a knife. She froze. The attacker walked past her and left the house through the back door. The shock paralyzed Dylan. She locked herself in her room and did not call the police right away. Only a few hours later, around noon, another friend of the students came to the house and then a call was made to 911. The police who arrived at the scene saw a horrific picture. 4 students were dead. 2 roommates miraculously survived. It later became known that Zana's phone was active at about 4:12 a.m. She managed to open TikTok just a few minutes before her death. This means that the killer found her alive, already awake. At first, the crime seemed illogical. There were no signs of forced entry. There was no obvious motive. The media turned the case into a national sensation. Thousands of theories were discussed online. Some believed that the killer knew the victims. others that it was the work of a serial killer. But the police collected evidence step by step. A DNA trace was found on the sheath of the blade. Neighbors' cameras showed a white Hyundai Elantra driving past the house several times. The suspect's phone was switched off at the time of the murders. These clues led to 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger, a criminology graduate student at a nearby university. He studied the behavior of killers, was interested in the psychology of crime, and even attended lectures on police work. In the university environment, he was considered strange, but smart and withdrawn. The arrest took place in December 2022. Kohberger was detained at his parents' home in Pennsylvania. At first glance, he was an ordinary student, but it was he who turned out to be a cold-blooded killer who took the lives of 4 young people. The investigation lasted a long time. Details emerged one after another. It became clear Kohberger had carefully planned the crime. He had watched the students, studied their routines, chosen the moment when they would be most vulnerable. In June 2025, he pleaded guilty. The court sentenced him to 4 life sentences without parole. But even after the verdict, the case continues to stir the public. Recently, a video from the prison appeared on the internet where Kohberger is allegedly seen in a cell. This caused a new wave of discussions and questions. For the families of the victims, this is an eternal pain. For the students of Idaho, it is the fear that even the most familiar and safe place can turn out to be deadly. At her plea hearing, Mortensen delivered a powerful and heartfelt victim impact statement where she shared how the tragedy had devastated her life. She said through tears, "He's an empty shell, less than human," emphasizing the callousness of the perpetrator. The tragedy broke her in places she never knew existed, robbed her of her sense of security and her ability to trust the world. She said she couldn't sleep alone for a year and would sleep at her mother's, afraid to close her eyes, as if someone might appear as soon as she blinked. She suffers from panic attacks, described as tsunamis, sudden attacks that take away her breath, shake her, and take away her consciousness. However, she said that although the pain will remain with her, she is alive, and he, Kohberger, has not taken away her voice. It is her way of surviving and preserving the memory of her friends. Dylan Mortensen survived because the killer probably saw her and ran away. Dylan cried because she lost 4 close friends and her world was turned upside down. The story of the Idaho murders is a reminder that evil can wear the mask of an ordinary person. Someone who was interested in the psychology of criminals became the embodiment of horror himself. This tragedy shows that no knowledge and research will save you if there is darkness inside. And for society, this is a lesson. We can never be completely sure who is next to us. But there is another moral. Even the most carefully planned crimes do not go unpunished. The traces left by the killer, albeit small, led him to life imprisonment. Do you believe that any evil sooner or later gets punished? Write your opinion in the comments.